Hi everybody, it's Dr. Brown and we're going to go ahead and talk about polygon modeling today, or box modeling, which is where you take one object and kind of extrude it and move the vertices on it and change the faces to get it to be what you want it to be, like if you're building a table or something. For instance, I'm going to show you what each of those things are: a vertice, a face, um, a line, all that stuff, or an edge is what they're called in 3D. And then we can look at them and kind of see how they all work in a 3D space. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is put down a box. So we'll start with this little box here. There we go. And then up here, we have this area, and it's pretty much empty, but it's about to turn into something else. So if I right click, let me hit Q first to switch off of my box tool. Otherwise, you'll just keep putting boxes down. And then I'm going to right click, convert to editable poly. And you can see that gives me more options here. Like I can do new things that I couldn't do before. But what we want to work with is we want to look at this area over here. So this is the sub pieces, the component pieces of what makes up a model. So if I click on this, we can see the vertices, and there are these little blue dots that show up. And you can see that I can select them with the W tool, or I can select them and then hit W to move, and then I'm allowed to move them. And I can change the shape of this polygonal object. If I select two of them by holding Control, I can then use this rotate and scale tool. So then you can scale. Or if you're crazy, you can rotate. Woo. You have to be careful though, because you can make impossible polygons. Like this is an impossible polygon right here, but we can fix those, so no big deal. Okay, so that's vertices. They're just little dots that are where every edge connects. And then the next one is edges. So that's an edge right there. And you can just move them, rotate them, scale them, stuff like that. But one thing to make it easier to see your edges, because right now, it's hard to see. We just have to select them. We can't really see exactly where the edge is. Well, on this box, it's very easy, but on a more complex model, it might be harder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to where it says default shading, and I'm going to click edged faces. And that's actually going to show me the edges surrounding each face. Okay. So then we're going to look at faces, which is this one. Okay, and that selects the entire face. So I can rotate it, I can scale it, okay? So I can kind of do whatever I need to. So what I want to do is then extrude the top out so we can make something, right? So we can build a new piece. So if we look at the menu, now that I've switched to face mode, all of these have shown up. So we have more options now, and the one we want is extrude. So if I click on extrude, it'll give me this tool. My icon changes to that tool, and then if I click and drag, I'll pull out a new polygonal piece. Okay, and whatever face I click on and drag, I'll pull more faces out of. Okay, so you can do pretty cool stuff with this. This is how they used to model everything back in the day before ZBrush. Everything was box modeled like this. So now the last thing we're going to do to kind of bring this home is make a table. Okay, so then we're gonna make a table, pretty simple. That way you can see kind of more of the extruding tools and all of that stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my component to my object mode. So I just unclick those. So I just unclick that, and then I can select the whole thing and delete it. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a table. Okay, so I'm going to use a box for this. Okay, that looks good. Now, one thing we have to worry about is that we don't have enough faces for legs, right? We need to build 4 legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to extrude them out of this object. So how would we go about doing that? Well, the easiest way is to go into your Modify tab and change how many segments are in the object. So we can change, like, this is our width segment, so we can change it to 2. right? So that goes ahead and separates it across. And then we can go to our length segments and switch that to 2. And now I have 4 faces, 4 individual faces that I can extrude. Okay, so what we can do is I can go to my face button, click them all, and then switch to scale and rotate. And you're gonna, they're all scaling together. This doesn't help me at all. Well, there's a trick to this. What we can do is we can tell Max is always gonna by default scale all your faces together. So instead what we're gonna do is we're just gonna select one, scale it. Actually, sorry. Let's extrude more faces out. So we're going to extrude another set of faces, but I'm going to shift click the object, the extrude tool this time, and that brings up this menu here. So I can say, hey, I want you to raise, this is going to be the table leg. I want you to raise up like that, but I don't want you to be connected. So I switch to local normals instead, or by polygon. And now check this out. If I, oops. Oops. Still on the extrude tool. Okay. So we pulled it out by 3. I'll hit the check mark. That locks it down. And then what I can do is I can actually scale these faces individually. I'm just going to get them close. Not quite exact, but close. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we need to make those squares. So you can see that we've kind of pulled them out of the table a little bit, but they're not squares and they're also not in the corners. So we got to move them. First, I'm going to go ahead and make it a square for a table leg. Now this is really cool. We can actually take them. So I'll select both of these, hit W, slide them to the edge, grab these guys, slide them to the edge, and then they're still not in the right place for legs, so I'll just move them to the corner. Okay, so there we go. So now what we're going to do is that one's pulled a little bit too far. So let me go ahead and get that one back. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull these out as legs. So I'll select all 4. I'm going to click on extrude. Instead of shift clicking, that way it gives me the tool. And then I'm just going to bring these up like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and scale them. So they're a little smaller at the end. There we go. Uncheck face mode. And then I'm just going to rotate the whole object. By 180, 180, enter. There we go. And there's a table. And I can move it above the grid if you want to. If you want to see it there. There you go. And that's a very, very simple table. That's a very simple model, but that's how I want you to start. I want you to start with your first model as something simple, like just kind of try to extrude like a toaster or something like that. So real quick, if you want to like extrude a face in, let me show you how to do that. So if you click on a box, make the box, right click, convert to editable poly. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select faces, and you can select it over here on your modify tab or up here on your graphite tab. So I'm going to click on that. Now, if I extrude it from here, it's going to make this black face appear. And what that means is that you have a face on top of another face and it will flicker. If you try to render this, it will flicker. So the way you fix that is I clicked extrude. And I'm going to go ahead and actually I'm going to click inset. So this is the inset tool. Inset will allow me to scale that face down right there. Then I'll switch back to the extrude tool and push it down. Okay, and that gives you the actual 3D edging around the surface and stuff like that. So you have pieces to work with for detailing. All right, and that's kind of the gist of polygon modeling. It takes a long time to get used to and familiar with, so don't stress about it. Just try to have fun, try to make something cool, and enjoy it.